So welcome to our audience on this evening of experiencing Bayard Rustin, the man behind the dream, and a very special collaboration between One Voice Mixed Chorus, Minnesota's LGBTQA for Allies chorus, and VocalEssence SOTA Youth, and you'll hear more about them in just a little bit. But I have some guests here for interviews. This is Phillip Shoultz, who is the conductor of SOTA, and this is Isaiah Bates, who sings with the SOTA chorus as well. Phillip, can you talk about how this collaboration came to be?
Absolutely, and thanks for hosting this event, Jane. We're very excited to see the show again and chat it up with everybody again tonight. So yeah, VocalEssence Singers of This Age was created 3 years ago out of our desire to connect with young people in the Twin Cities and to give them a way to express themselves through choral music, but to shake it up and to expand the possibilities of what choral music could be. And the dream was to really create an increasingly diverse choir that's accessible for all, a choir that looks like our community. And that's part of how this collaboration came to be. I was inspired at the premiere of The Man Behind the Dream a few years ago. Jane, I saw it at South High School and was just thrilled with the collaboration that you did with the high school choir and the content of the show, and said to myself, one day I'm going to collaborate with that choir, and I'm going to have a choir of my own to get to sing with them and to know what it feels like to live out your truth, you know, to live out your purpose in life. So we met, started talking and chatting, getting to know each other. We invited you to our second annual Together We Sing Festival. You led some workshops along with One Voice Mixed Chorus. Then SOTA came to being, and you asked us to join you on this journey. And I said, yes, even though we had like 3 other projects going on at the same time. I was like, we are going to do this.
Yeah, that's great. And it feels, it felt really important to have youth involved in helping to tell the story of Bayard Rustin's life. And I'm really thrilled that happened. You'll see tonight that we open with a short set in the concert that features the SOTA youth, and then we'll do the full performance of Bayard Rustin, the man behind the dream. So Isaiah, talk about what was it like to join with a bunch of LGBTQ adults and be a part of both the rehearsals and the concert.
It was an amazing experience. I remember seeing you had walked into one of our SOTA rehearsals, and you like passed out this little paper and you started talking about One Voice, and I was like, wow, there's because I knew I recently started learning about that there were like choirs specifically like geared towards LGBTQ people. And when I found out that there was one like locally, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually really cool. And I was really excited for the opportunity. And so when we actually started rehearsing together, I was actually able to feel a similar sort of love that SOTA has within their community, and how we were able to sort of blend our 2 families together to create something really wonderful.
It's true. Yeah. Phillip, can you talk about the mission of both of our organizations and how that worked?
Yeah, it's really exciting. You know, VocalEssence has been around 51 years, and people know us for the adult choirs and the work that we've done there. What people don't know is all of the work that we have done passionately in the community, engaging with young people in particular of all backgrounds, providing this access to an experience that we believe everyone should share. And so with SOTA in particular, the dream was to create a community where everyone could be themselves uniquely as they were created, to be comfortable in their skin, to just name what they want to be in life, and people to receive that. And I feel that from One Voice Mixed Chorus, that everyone lives out their being and existence unapologetically. And so I just felt that we would have great synergy when the 2 groups would get together. I mean, even the shadow sides, you know, both groups are a little bit chatty, you know, and both groups are very opinionated at times, which as conductors, you know, we love it. I love an opinionated choir. That means they're alive and they're in it.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how all of the similarities between the 2 groups just kind of came together to create a wonderful cohesive whole, as Isaiah said.
Yeah. So Isaiah, one of my favorite moments of the Bayard Rustin concert was sitting in the audience because Steve Milloy, the composer, was conducting, and looking over and watching the tenors and basses of both of our choruses just boogieing and dancing and having a great time. So, and I know I could see you were having a great time as a part of that.
Yeah, it's something that, we really do. When you feel the music speaks to you and your body just starts moving, and it just tends to lean over to the left side of the stage more often than not, and so we were just really connecting with the material.
Yeah. So when Phillip and I were planning this concert, we decided that SOTA would open with a few songs. And one of the songs that I heard SOTA youth rehearsing was a song called You Will Be Found from Dear Evan Hansen. And all of a sudden I had this image of SOTA youth on stage and one voice adult singers coming in and joining them on the chorus, which is you are not alone, you are not alone, and that repeats. So when you're watching the video, you won't actually get to see this, but just wanted to give you the heads up that at that point in the song, it happened. One voice singers came into the balcony and surrounded the audience and joined SOTA youth on You Will Be Found. It was a lovely moment.
Yeah, it was a great experience, wasn't it, Isaiah, to feel their presence on that You Are Not Alone?
Yeah, it was great. It was almost like, not to pun going to be intended, but it really felt like both choirs were coming together as one voice.
Nice. That's good. That's good. And I think, during this COVID quarantine, that is obviously a theme that we are all struggling with, and choirs are really struggling with, this sense of isolation. And we really hope that our concert tonight brings this community together and brings in new audiences to experience both of these choirs and to experience an incredible new work by Steve Milloy and Vanessa German and many other artists that are participating. So without further ado, we take you to the opening of our concert. Thank you to Phillip and Isaiah.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Kuyochmo Yagu Satao Vikunje Haite Yokuli Kuyochmo Yagu Satao Vikunje Haite Yokuli Eku Kiemo Haita Ida Shada 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 Haita lograré, obtener lo que yo sé, que es para mí, lograré, obtener lo que yo sé, que es para mí. Sí que quiero hablar hacia la atmósfera, 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 hablar hacia la atmósfera. I shall have what I decree, 'cause I believe it belongs to me. I shall have what I decree, 'cause I believe it belongs to me. So I'm gonna speak into the atmosphere. Speak into the atmosphere. Speak into the atmosphere. Speak into the atmosphere. So I'm gonna speak into the atmosphere. Speak into the atmosphere. Speak into the atmosphere. Speak into the atmosphere.
Even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow,
I still have a dream.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up.
And live out the true meaning of its creed.
we hold these truths to be self-evident.
That all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia,
The sons of former slaves
And the sons of former slave owners
We'll be able to sit down at the table of brotherhood.
I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi,
a state sweltering with the heat of oppression,
sweltering with the heat of oppression,
will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice.
I have a dream that little children
will one day live in a nation
where they will not be judged by the color of their skin,
but by the content of their character.
I have a dream today.
I have a dream that one day down in Alabama,
little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands
with little white boys and white girls.
As sisters and brothers.
I have a dream today.
this is our hope.
This is the faith that I go back with.
With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope.
With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation
into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
With this faith, we will be able to work together,
to pray together,
To struggle together,
to go to jail together,
To stand up for freedom together,
knowing that we will be free one day.
So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire.
Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York.
let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania.
Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado.
let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California.
But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia.
Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi.
From every mountainside,
Let freedom ring.
When we let freedom ring,
from every village and every hamlet,
Every state and every city,
We will be able to speed up that day.
When all of God's children,
black men and white men,
Jews and Gentiles,
Protestants and Catholics,
will we'll be able to join hands and sing.
In the words of the old Negro spiritual,
Free at last.
Free at last.
Thank God Almighty.
we are free at last. We are young kids, we are often outspoken. Nobody listens to our dreams of what we have been hoping. But because we love each other and we keep on poking, the doors of creativity can finally be open. You know that we are artists, you know that we are dreamers. We are a family full of fun and strong believers. And together we're believing in a lot of things, one of which is that all of our futures will be supreme. We believe in each other, love chumps, find out whether we are each other's father, sister, brother, and even mother. We will always be there for one another. We are the lightning booming our heavy thunder.
We are the peace within the hate. We are the spark in the night. The spark that burns wildfires. We sing with all the might. We are the glow of the earth. We are the light in the dark. We hold each other up when life gets hard.
I wanna feel like I belong. I can't feel that the love is not strong. That's why we writing this song. You can sing along, tag along as we find the difference between right and wrong. On a mission to find peace, serenity in police, where everyone have the guidance to stay safe in the streets. Like wandering little geese, we're nothing less but complete. Without each other, we might be subject to cease in existence. Stand with us. It's not an ask, it's a plea to your tolerance. The world is shook and it seems so corrupt. I'm about to something, so come and listen up. I'm only telling you one, two in the front, even in you in the back. It's overtime at any time they take control and they kick back. Population being run by ever-Jevin, DGX, LGBTQ plus youth are not accepted, that's just why. The solution's simple, it ain't like popping pimples. Just listen to our words, the fire will soon rekindle. Yeah, we can save the world, all we gotta do is try. Finding a rhythm in the system, we can stand up and unite.
We are the peace within the hate. We are the spark in the night. The spark that burns wildfires. We sing with all the might. We are the glow of the earth. We are the light in the dark. We hold each other up when life gets hard.
We are not perfect.
We are stronger together. We believe in a brighter future.
We all have a place in the world.
We believe in the power of love.
For simple words we sing today. With these 4 words we ought to pray and take to heart this sacred phrase. More love, less hate.
It seems so easy on
words to heal the human race, and yet we struggle to create more love, less hate. More love, less hate. For love we stand. More love in this land. Will you join? Come take my hand. More love, less hate. When fear and violence touch our lives, it separates, seeks to divide. Our faith in love won't be denied. More love, less hate. Just as the night gives way to dawn, justice shines forth before too long. Until that day, we will sing on. More love, less hate. More love, less hate. For love we stand. More love in this land. Will you join? Come take my hand. More love, less hate. For love we stand. More love in this land. Will you join? Come take my hand. More love, yes, love, yes, love, less hate. More
Freedom is the sound of the loud man drunk on the sun, drunk in the sun, head tilted back, face arched to the sky, like he is the saxophone and Jesus is the Miles to the Davis. And the tune is improvisational, like a Saturday afternoon whistle just wandering down the street. Freedom is like I could just run out into the street and scream out for the whole world to hear. Everyone is made to dance. A waltz, a dirge, a rise-up song so high that even the high rises would just rise up and lean into the dance. Like a long woman come to exercise the pull and stretch of her rib bones. Everyone is made to dance. I'd scream it out, and I wouldn't take it back. Not a word, not a single verb. I would just let the rhythm come tumbling off of my tongue and into the sky around my face like a flurry of medicinal birds come to change the air with their flap dance and song. And perhaps all of that would look a little crazy. Perhaps all of the normal three-piece suit, cell phone talking on people would just walk by me, confused, and a little tiny bit inspired. And maybe they would begin to reach out their hand, to take my hand, to dance with me. But they would stop themselves and think to themselves in their heads, they would think, who does she think she is? And I will hear that thought in their head. And I will say out loud, I am you. And I think that you are amazing, really I do. I think that you are fantastic. Truly, you are so fly. I mean, you are infinitely more amazing than anything that could ever be bought in a store. You are dope. Can I have your phone number? Do you want to dance? I believe that instead of going to war, we should dance. We should just gather up the disputing nations, countries, and territories and have them face off in a battle of choreographers, soundscapes, and set design. That way war would just look like West Side Story. It would be a battle of leaps and lyrics, your artists against ours. There would be no winners or losers, just soul-shaking, soul-stirring, exhausting performances. It would be your job to make us weep, to make the ground beneath our feet tremble and shake with the ovation of it. No winners, no losers, just soul-stirring, exhausting performances. And people who were killed in battle, they would only be killed in battle on stage. And at the end of the show, everybody who fell down and died, all the kids who washed the shores of Mediterranean island, all the kids who died at the border, all the Tamir Rices, all the Sandra Blands, everybody who fell down and died, they just stand up and take a bow. And all of us, we would rise up to our feet and we would scream, we would shout, we would say, oh my God! When they killed you, oh my God, when they killed you, oh God, oh, when they killed you, I don't ever need to see something like that again. And then things would be so much better than they ever were before. There would be no more homophobia because some of the world's best choreographers would be gay. Like Jerome Robbins and Alvin Ailey, people would just walk around all the time talking about use your space, people. Use your space. Gay people everywhere would just be seen as national treasures. Every little precocious second grader with a good idea would get the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And would be elevated and recognized as the visionary that they are. And then the arts. The arts would get more funding in the schools and in the city streets because the National Endowment for the Arts would become the Department of Defense. It makes so much sense when you think about it. So rise as in the sun. Get up from whence you was, come on, move forward, put one foot in front of the other and say something nice if you want to. And if you don't feel like saying nice things, then you feel free to tell the truth. And then tell your stories. And then retell your stories. And then re-story this whole story and rise. Thank you.
Ever feel like nobody is there? Do you ever feel forgotten in the middle of nowhere? Do you ever feel like you could disappear? Like you could fall and no one would hear?
So let that lonely feeling wash away, 'cause maybe there's a reason to believe you'll be okay. 'Cause when you don't feel strong enough to stand, you can reach out your hand. Someone will come running, and I know they'll take you home.
Even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, and when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. So let the sun come streaming in, 'cause you'll reach up and you'll rise again. Lift your head and look around. You will be found. You will be found.
so honored to work with SOTA Youth on this project. And tonight, you get to hear Bayard Rustin, the man behind the dream, performed by the two artists that created this piece. And this has never happened before. So Steve Milloy, who created the music for this piece, is conducting the piece tonight. And Vanessa German, a multimedia artist, spoken word artist, who created the script and the libretto, is playing our story guide piece. So you have a special, special treat in store for you tonight. It took us about 2 years in creating this piece, Steve, Vanessa, and I working back and forth and collaborating, and it has been an amazing, lovely journey, and I'm glad that you are on this journey with us. I want to thank our commission sponsors, especially John Sullivan and Sharon McDonald, and additional sponsors who actually helped to fund each of the movements in this particular work, and their names are on the screen, so thank you to them. This past July, I had the opportunity, an incredible opportunity, to travel through Cambodia with an LGBT chorus. And in the course of that trip, I met this man, a transgender man named San, who is a weaver. And San weaves rainbow scarves. And these rainbow scarves are scarves that San sells as a fundraiser to support a project going through rural parts of Cambodia and collecting stories of LGBT people in Cambodia. So by the time I left, I went to the ATM several times and managed to buy 140 scarves for One Voice and supports San's work. So you'll see those tonight.
Good evening. I'm Phillip Shoultz, the Associate Conductor of VocalEssence and the founding conductor of VocalEssence Singers of This Age. And I apologize for being so enamored with my youth here that I didn't acknowledge all of your wonderful applause. You're very kind. And we're very grateful. We were transitioning in our minds. You know, Singers of This Age is an intentional name that the students in the first year created. And take that word, it is a play on the word. Singers of this age being high school students, 9th through 12th graders from the Twin Cities area high schools, about 18 schools represented this year. We've had over 20 schools represented in the 3 years of the program, mostly Minneapolis, St. Paul public schools, but then a variety of surrounding areas as well. And the second part of this age is that they believe that they are called to this place, to this time, to use our voices and the community that we are creating to inspire positive change through the gift of vocal artistry in our community. That's what they told us. And so everything that we do intentionally is along those lines. So what we're wearing tonight is for the first time, second performance now, but the first day that we've worn our hoodies that just coordinate so beautifully with these wonderful scarves. We planned this, you know, when Jane was in Cambodia, I was like, we're gonna do hoodies. Not. But no, we thought tonight was the right night to unveil them. And hoods up, please, everybody, hoods on, because many of you know this, but as a black man, if I walk around with a hoodie on, there's a stigma. If I come down the street by myself on a dark street, many people are gonna walk away or grab and clutch and get a little nervous. And I have to tell you something, where I grew up in Georgia, I was privileged. People didn't look at me that way because of the clothes that I wear and all. I feel kind of safe. But I felt my brothers and my friends who felt this way. And so Jason Soul, who's a Twin Cities leader, community leader, has started this movement, Humanize My Hoodie. And we wanted to pay homage to that and do our part to destigmatize clothing and anything that allows people to make prejudged notions about folks. The second thing is we wanted to take it a step further and personalize it for us, in that when you see us outside, get close and read the front, because each person has an individualized hashtag that they created. And they also have a story behind why they chose that hashtag. Because these young people see themselves as vocal activists, using their voices in singing and in speaking to inspire change in the world. It's a really beautiful thing to work with them. So I feel slightly uncomfortable, but Jane asked me to do this, so I just wanted to name that there. The guest guy isn't just taking over now. I'm going to talk for a long time. But Jane said, you know, why don't you do a little intro into the Bayard Rustin piece from your perspective? Because, you know, I've come at it. I attended the premiere performance. I heard it as an audience member, not knowing that one day we'd be collaborating. And I was very inspired because at that point in time, 3 years ago, it had only been a couple years before that as a well-educated African-American man who grew up in Georgia, worked right down the street from Ebenezer Church, okay? Knew all about Southern Christian Leadership Conference all of my life, all of those leaders. John Lewis is a personal friend. I didn't know who Bayard Rustin was. Bayard Rustin was not someone that we talked about because, you know, Black History Month has become something that's safe, and it's a safe place to share the safe leaders, the names that we all know and we can recite, and there's nothing against it. I'm not taking anything away from those incredible leaders and what they did, but someone determined who was safe to put in the history books and whose stories were safe to share. And now we are beginning to unearth, as Vanessa so eloquently says, unearth stories that are already written and giving voice to them. And that's the amazing thing about this story that you are in for a treat to hear tonight. We're going to tell the story of a man who was silenced, but did amazing things behind the scenes and pushed people forward who got credit that they deserved, but pushed them to make choices that made the movement even better. And I'm thrilled that we get to participate in this commission and share it with you this evening.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the first set with SOTA. Before we head into Bayard Rustin, the man behind the dream, I wanted to have you meet a few of the artists who brought this piece to creation. We have joining us now Steve Milloy, who was the composer of the music and the concept, and also Vanessa German, who created the storyline and the libretto for the piece. And of course, welcome back to Phillip Shoultz and Isaiah Bates. So Steve, can you just talk to us a bit about how this piece came to be and what was the inspiration?
Sure. You know, I've been singing in GLBTQ choruses now for over 30 years, let's just say that. And all of that time, I had done pieces about Harvey Milk. I had done pieces about Matthew Shepard, but I had never really done a piece about someone who looked like me. A friend in St. Louis introduced me to the documentary Brother Outsider, which is about the life of Bayard Rustin, who was Black, unashamedly gay, and a civil rights organizer, who also organized the famous March on Washington in 1964, where Martin Luther King did his I Have a Dream speech. And I had never heard about this man in my history at all. And I was floored, and I was like, there's somebody out there like me. And plus, he was a singer, he was a musician. I think probably if he had lived longer and knew the right people, he'd probably be considered to be, you know, maybe a radical fairy. He was about love and peace for all and equality for all. He was so much of the backbone of the civil rights movement, and yet we never heard about him. So I thought, this man deserves a piece. This man deserves to be known about and heard.
And eventually we got Vanessa involved because we needed someone to sort of write what his love and his life and story looked like. Vanessa, can you describe what your part was in this?
So I came into the work after it had already begun, after some writing had begun, some of the text had been written and some of the songs had been started. So we were talking about the soul of a story. How do you bring the energy and the sort of vulnerabilities and the intimate parts of someone's life, someone like Bayard Rustin's life, into this work? What are the parts of the story with heart and fire and muscle and living urgency that can be brought into that story? How do we bring that story into the breath and into the bodies of this choir and orators who are going to embody it in connection with the lived experience that we're having and the experience of an audience member? Because one of the things I remember saying at that table was something like, this story is still alive. So it needs to take up the body and the lungs and the breath and the voice in a way that is soulful and loving and vulnerable and painful and alive. And so we were just talking about that, and I didn't know you were going to be like, hey, Vanessa, will you write for this? But just listening to what things were happening at the table, I was like, it is clear to me that this story is alive inside of my body. I think that that's a gift that you have the opportunity to do, is to make that story alive in the bodies of singers and listeners and stuff. So that's where it started, is like, I'm very passionate about the power of story and the power of love, and that's what I saw there.
That's beautiful. And Stephen and I had already talked about how does this piece not just be something that happened in the past? And so, Vanessa, your contribution about how we bring it to the future was really, really crucial. And as you watch, our audience, as you watch the piece, you'll sort of see how his life transforms into where we are today. And Isaiah, I wanted to ask you, what were some of your favorite moments about being a part of this performance and the rehearsal process?
Well, personally, I feel so grateful and honored to be one of the people who have been able to take this story and be able to bring it to life and bring joy to people's faces by telling them the story. And so I remember, like, around one of the first times we had actually like looked at the material for Man Behind the Dream. So SOTA was at Phillip's church over at Edina, and he passed out the folders, and we were like, oh, here comes a new project. And so we opened it and we were like, oh, that's a lot of songs. When are we supposed to do this? And he said, well, we have about a couple months. And I said, are you sure this is gonna work? But the fact that he had so much faith and belief in us that we were able to accomplish this, made me want to work harder and be able to deliver this to the best of my ability. And so I remember opening it and reading one of the passages at the beginning of the booklet and finding out who Bayard Rustin was, learning that he was a Black gay man that was very active. And instantly I gained a connection with the material as someone who is not only Black, but also gay. And something about it just made me want to invest all of my time in it. Something about it made me want to learn more about it and connect even more with the material.
Beautiful. Steve, when you wrote the pieces, you had such an interesting variety of genres. Can you talk about some of your influences in putting these pieces together?
Sure. What I love about the time in which Bayard lived is such a wonderful time for music. I mean, you basically start from the turn of the century and ragtime music all the way up to the 80s. And so I wanted to make sure that I covered all of those genres, and especially in the times he was living in at the time, and just how they correspond to how he was speaking to what he was feeling at the moment. I mean, the first song that Vanessa and I wrote together, Beautiful Boy, is a beautiful ragtime ballad.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah. I just really quick, and for those of you of a certain age, if you listen in the last piece, there will be elements of Yes, elements of Randy Crawford, and elements of Shalimar. Do not ask me how all of those came together, but they did. And I will shut up now, because who knows, I might get sued.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah. I just really quick, and for those of you of a certain age, if you listen in the last piece, there will be elements of Yes, elements of Randy Crawford, and elements of Shalimar. Do not ask me how all of those came together, but they did. And I will shut up now, because who knows, I might get sued.
So Steve, is there a prize for listeners who can identify those moments?
It's the prize is that they can identify it. That's it.
Okay, all right. So there is a chat going on. So if you find those musical little moments, be sure to chat about them. That's great. So Vanessa and Steve.
Yeah, please, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, we took this piece into schools, into 1, 2, 3. Well, I think in all we sang for about 8 middle schools in 3 different settings. Can you talk about what this experience was to take this into middle schools in St. Paul?
there was part of me that was a little shy about it because I wasn't sure in middle school populations how much a part of their sort of lives is integrated in with either social justice or how much interaction and integration inside of all their subjects like history and stuff do they know about LGBTQ people, like, you know, like trans scientists and gay mathematicians, and like, is it like really, do they have an integrated learning process? And so I wasn't sure, you know, just for me, like if there was gonna have to be pre-learning, which did happen because One Voice does like preparatory learning before visits. It was so it's like bringing a mountain, bringing a living, breathing, enormous mountain of a thing into a institution, into a space. And so it's so alive, and every child, there were some schools, there was like a full auditorium, and it would be so many voices and so many eyes and so many hearts. And it made me think about how real learning is a matter of heart, and how these kids are in front of people and listening to music that will be in their heart for years. They'll sing parts of it and they'll probably wonder, man, I listened to that when I was in the 6th grade and I've never forgotten that line, Black Boy Born, or, you know. So it's hard for me to talk about exactly what that was, because it was very intense, and it's not all romantic, and it's not all like you know, like Cirque du Soleil, and like it's a part of the joy of what it is to be an artist and to share and to be asked to be like very present and alive with your gifts in different spaces.
Yeah. Steve, anything you want to add?
Oh yeah. At one of the schools, one of the kids came up and asked, so did you like write every piece of that music? And I was like, yeah, like every piece, or arrange it? And it's like, yeah. And she was like, wow, that's so cool. I want to do that someday. And she wanted to talk about how to go through the process, what types of education she wanted. But, you know, trying to stick to a school schedule and the school hours is always, you know, as Vanessa said, like bringing a mountain, and sometimes you can only fit so much of the mountain into the time allowed. So that, it felt a little up and down, but by the time we got to, I guess, the 3rd school that day, the rhythm had kicked in.
Yeah.
And, you know, I could take time to actually notice people really appreciating the music and appreciating what we were laying down and sharing with them.
Yeah. Phillip, favorite moments for you?
You've just illuminated the fact that, you know, the Singers of This Age is not your ordinary youth choir. The fact that we got to premiere our hoodies today, and Isaiah and I both happen to wear our hoodies for the interview. And we do these weekly Zoom calls, and we're all wearing them all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, we premiered it for this program, and it has great resonance for us because of the way the students, each of them have affirmed to me in post-concert writings and narratives that this empowered them to speak their truth a little more firmly, to wear it on their chests more proudly, and to answer questions. I think that was the biggest thing that we learned together by being with your wonderful chorus. They're amazing musicians, Jane, but they're also great people who live out their truths so openly. And Isaiah, you said it best, unapologetically being who they are and sharing their love through the music that we were able to present together.
Yeah. So the other artist that I want to give a really important shout out to is Roland Hawkins, who joined Vanessa in one of the storyteller roles that you'll see. And he just came with such exuberance and beauty in terms of his voice and character. And it was such a pleasure to work with Roland also in putting this piece together. Vanessa, can you talk about Bayard's role as a Quaker, which comes up in this piece very clearly? Do you feel like the civil rights movement would have been significantly different without his particular influence coming from that Quaker community?
I think it would have been different, yeah. But I think that love prevails. and that whether it came from Quakers or it came from a body, a collective of women, a collective of angel spirited human beings, that love would have prevailed. Because you know, one of the things about nonviolence is, and like people who really understand in the soul of themselves about the philosophy of nonviolence, is that what they understand is there's actually no other way. That if war worked, war would have worked already. And that if guns worked, they would have worked already. And if accumulating death worked, then, you know, it would have worked already. But I think that one of the things about Bayard being a Quaker and being Julia's grandson is that he wasn't raised with shame. He, like, when you're shame-free, you have no obligation to a certain kind of fear. And I say that for anybody who's listening to this, and the audience who listens to the song, is that all of the things in your life will conspire together for you to be the greatest human being that you can be. And when you start to put the pieces together and you start to pay attention to all of the soils that have been nourished, and also to the ways that you've been protected, you be grateful for that. Like, I have gratitude for all of those things inside of Bayard Rustin, and inside of all the people who listen to this right now. He was so nourished. And so I have infinite gratitude for all of those Quakers who fed into his grandmother also.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
All right, thank you to all of you for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye,
Thank you, Jane.
Bye.
Bye all. Enjoy. Sing along.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day. January 20th, 1983. Congress finally passed the King Holiday Bill into law. In 1983, Coretta Scott King informed America.
This is not a black holiday. It is a people's holiday. It is our holiday. And we have all come together to celebrate in the living legacy of sacrifice, courage, and humanity that was Dr. King's enduring song, a song that we all know so well. We shall overcome.
You may think Dr. King's song a solo song. Selma and marching, a fatal shot on an April day in Memphis. I have a dream. I have a dream.
Or perhaps you see Dr. King's song more of like a barbershop quartet of social justice, featuring singers like A. Phillip Randolph, Ralph J. Abernathy, John Lewis, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
I have a dream. I have a dream.
But what do you know about Bayard Rustin?
Here in a landscape of iPhone dreamers, Wikipedia, and very difficult to grasp human lessons that keep marching their way around us again and again and again, what do you know about the man behind the dream?
Bayard Rustin was born to change the world. I don't mean to be hyperbolic. I just come to you with the truth. Rustin was born in the year of our Lord, 1912. William Howard Taft was president. Memphis Blues was playing a rage on the old Victrola. The Titanic sank and Fenway Park opened in Boston.
And 62 African Americans were lynched. Imagine that. It was a different America, people. It was a different world. And Bayard Rustin was born a black boy in a world that never wanted to look him in the eye.
Black boy born, breastbone to the breeze.
Boy born, tar and cotton beneath his feet. Black boy born, don't dare to reach to dream. Curl your spine and turn your cheek. Bayard, black boy, don't you dare to reach.
Don't really
Bayard Rustin was born with the eyes of a dreamer. He had one foot planted firmly in the separate but equal present, but he was also standing up on tiptoe, reaching into a future where no boy, nobody would have to wither of body or spirit under the oppressive fists of ignorance and hate.
Bayard Rustin was raised by his grandmother Julia, a devout Quaker. She was a free-born African-American woman, and she didn't take nothing from nobody. She was what the kids would say, a bad mother for peace and justice.
As a devout Quaker and an early member of the NAACP, Julia Rustin was a beacon in the small black community of Westchester, Pennsylvania.
The Rustin dining room walls rang with the voices and stories of visiting heroic leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois,
Souls of Black Folks,
Mary McLeod Bethune,
Bethune-Cookman College,
and the poet and activist James Weldon Johnson.
Lift every voice and sing.
Their voices fueled Bayard's dream. Please stand and join us in this Black American anthem.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let us resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Julia impressed upon Bayard the strength and courage of presence. She helped him to see, even through adversity and conflict, the power of remaining calm.
One doesn't just lose one's temper. Grandmother Julia taught Bayard Rustin that a peaceful presence was a more powerful weapon against hate than an entire army of cannons and guns.
Bayard learned to treat all people with respect, to hear every side of a story and controversy, and to put oneself at the service of others in the name of love.
Beautiful boy, sing your beautiful song, always looking ahead with your back so long, with an open heart and a spirit strong. Nothing can break let no one shackle your heart. Oh, it's coming. Oh, my beautiful boy, sing your beautiful song. Always looking ahead with your back so long, with an open heart and a spirit strong. Nothing can break you if you live your truth, your song. Nothing can break you,
It was Grandmother Julia who raised Bayard with a fundamental understanding that we all belong to a single human family and that all members of this human family are equal.
She taught Bayard through the Quakers and through her own living actions that even though the hate and cruelty of racism would seek to break and brutalize his humanity with fists and nooses against his body and his mind, she taught him that it would never do him any good to go about meeting violence with violence.
Blessed are the ones of peace, whose hearts and hopes are one, whose kind desires to serve and please through all their actions run. God's goodness stands unchanged from day to day. I'll drop my burden at God's feet and bear a song away.
But Quakers weren't timid people. No, they were peaceful fighters. They were stalwart humans who put their bodies to use in the fight against hate.
Quakers were an important link in the Underground Railroad, and they lived their faith through their actions.
So even though Bayard had a way with words and won all of his high school's oratory awards, he was never just talk. Bayard lived his faith. It was in his hands and his feet. It was in his heart. It was Bayard's indefatigable faith and belief that we are all one human family that led one of his first protests as a high school athlete.
At an away football game, the hotel would not let the black players eat and sleep with the rest of the team. A natural and courageous leader, offensive tackle and MVP, Bayard led a group of students in protest, refusing to compete at the championship game. And the hotel relented.
Thus on the heavenly hills, the saints are blessed above, where joy like morning dew distills and all the air is love. God's goodness stands unchanged from day to day. I'll drop my burden at God's feet and bear a song away.
It was also at this young age that Bayard expressed to his grandmother his romantic interest and attraction to other young men.
Now, homosexuality at the turn of the 20th century was a crime. In some states, a capital offense, punishable by imprisonment or corporal punishment. We've come a long way, friends, which makes Julia Rustin a woman ahead of her time. Because when Bayard Rustin did what we've all so affectionately come to know as coming out, his grandmother only remarked,
I suppose that's what you need to do. Julia Rustin understood that Bayard would have to fight to be the kind of free that he dreamed of, and he need not add the crippling internal battle of shame to impede his progress. So she just went on raising Bayard in the truth that his love was the same love as all love.
Always on display. No need to pretend, I won't even try. Living my life means not living a lie. It may not suit you to see me this way. Sorry, my dears, no such thing as to gain. Some say I've lost that I put on airs. I just brush them off with my own special flair. My love won't hide, gaze into my eyes. Try not to confuse my truth with your lies. Living my life in the light, sex and romance can blur. Passion that explodes, but the love dream differs. My love won't hide, locked up in a cage. Confined from all movement, I dance center stage. Long arms extended, legs intertwined, swirling a turn to the left and the right. In close embrace as we're holding on tight, out of the shadows into my side. Some lovers dance in the dark, beneath the cover of night. I won't hide from my truth. I tango in
And so, armed with the beliefs and the acceptance of his loving home and family, Bayard set out as a young man to change the world.
He became
An angelic troublemaker.
a man of peaceful and forceful action.
Bayard moved from Westchester, Pennsylvania to New York City. His political development took him through pacifism,
communism,
socialism,
and into the civil rights movement. He traveled over 10,000 miles to 20 states to bring the message of love, justice, and equality
to communities and families struggling with the real, everyday pain of poverty and racism. From not being able to put a can of beans on the table to the grief and trauma of racism.
Cross burnings, church bombings, and lynchings.
To the everyday ugliness of having to hang your head low as you pass a white man on the street.
But Bayard didn't hang his head low for anybody because he knew who he was. He was Julia's grandson, a proud descendant of enslaved people,
child of a mighty and loving God. He knew no reason to live in the shadows.
Not for being a black man.
Or for being a gay man. Bayard recognized racism and homophobia both as forces of hate fed by ignorance, lies, and fear. He knew that he could not both love God and hate himself for being a black gay man. So he didn't.
He walked tall, and he stood proud. Bayard understood that getting black folks to internalize the hate-filled ugliness of racism was part of the job of racism. It is part of the job of racism to divide communities and eventually the self. He said,
"You can't have somebody telling you every day that you are nothing and not to start to believe it yourself."
But Bayard told them, no. No. No, you are not ugly.
No. No, you are not stupid.
No, you are not powerless. He began to give form to his genius strategies of organizing, saying,
"The only weapon we have is our bodies, and we have to find ways to tuck them in so the wheels won't turn. And if the seats on the bus can't hold your mother, be a stick in the wheel. And if the seats on the bus can be used by your father, be a stick in the wheel. 'Cause if the seats on the bus aren't meant for all of us, go on, be a stick in the wheel." Hear what I'm saying?
The factory can't be used by my auntie, I'll be a stick in the wheel. And if the lathe in the factory can't be turned by my uncle, I'll be a stick in the wheel. 'Cause if the factory in town gonna turn us all down, well, I'll be a stick in the wheel. Oh, brother, brother, stand by sitting, stand by sitting. Oh, my sister, sister, take yourself right to the ground, to the ground. Oh, brother, brother, that's the walking up Capitol Hill, Capitol Hill. Oh, my sister, sister, make that place stand still. Yeah, 'cause we made ourselves good. We don't have to say a word, we just got to shut it all down. Hear the sticks, hear the drums, they're beating out a rhythm, beating out a marching sound. Hear the sticks, hear the drums, they're telling all the children, telling how strength can be found.
In 1947, Bayard organized the first Freedom Rides. The first Freedom Rides protesting racial segregation in the South. A full 12 years before Rosa Parks made headlines, Bayard Rustin was arrested for sitting in the whites-only section of the bus, and he was sentenced to prison. He was sentenced to work on a chain gang.
I got a rainbow tied all around my shoulder. I got a rainbow tied all around my shoulder. I'm going home.
1944, after refusing to participate in World War II, Bayard spent 28 months in prison as a conscientious objector. His lover wrote him letters in code as a woman so they would not be intercepted by prison officials.
I can't read that. Read that letter for crying. I can't read that. Read that letter for crying. My tears run down. Lord, my tears run down. Just you wait and wait.
Even incarcerated and on the chain gang, Bayard moved for justice and began organizing within the prison, documenting the torturous punishment served by the chain gang guards.
On Bayard's release, he drafted a 5-part series for the New York Post titled 22 Days on a Chain Gang, describing the brutal details of his imprisonment.
These words, combined with Rustin's articulate protests, led to the abolition of the chain gang in North Carolina.
Peaceful movements of protest were changing lives worldwide.
Moved by the life and work of Mahatma Gandhi, Bayard traveled to India to learn the work of a global pacifist community. Even in India, he refused to hide his sexuality, and he loved the dress and the jewelry of the people of India.
Profoundly touched by Gandhi's teachings, Bayard wove the path of nonviolent resistance into his strategy for social change. It was this work that led him to meet with a young leader, Martin Luther King Jr.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929. Bayard Rustin was 17 years his elder. Their friendship formed a powerful bond founded in the belief that freedom isn't given, it is won.
These two men, dreamers and fighters alike, found their individual strengths complemented. Rustin taught King the principles of nonviolent direct action and worked to bring King to national prominence.
Together, they brought a fierce urgency and momentum to a movement that had been rising and pressing.
Aching against the walls of Jim Crow and hate.
To a place of thunder and collective action that could not and would not be denied.
Don't have to ride Jim Crow, no, don't have to ride Jim Crow. On June the 3rd, the High Court said, when you ride your mistake, Jim Crow is dead. You don't have to ride Jim Crow. And when you get on the boat, when you get on the boat,
On January 6th, 1959, Mildred Loving and Richard Perry Loving were arrested and sentenced to 1 year in prison for the felony crime of marriage between a person classified as white and a person classified as colored.
It was a punishable crime for a white man to marry a black woman, but it was not a punishable crime for that same white man to hang and lynch that black woman's brother.
In January of 1953, California police arrested and prosecuted Bayard Rustin for sodomy, or a crime against the order of nature. Now, a crime against the order of nature was at the discretion of the police officer. So, holding hands could be a crime against the order of nature. Leaning in too close in the shadows could be a crime against the order of nature. Sodomy laws were often used to terrorize gay people.
Now, this was a charge in which Rustin clearly denied.
He was arrested. The arrest was not only a threat to his physical body, but a threat to the very spirit of his heart, the place where his dreams got their marching orders.
He was jailed for 60 days. Could he have been more careful? Yes. But could he have been less black or less gay? No. And why would he have wanted to?
Nobody knows the trouble I see. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I see. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord. Sometimes I'm almost to the ground. Oh, yes, glory, hallelujah.
Detractors, both black and white, came after Bayard Rustin, armed with the fear-tipped spear of homophobia. Lies that Martin Luther King Jr. and Bayard Rustin were lovers were maliciously concocted by Representative Adam Clayton Powell Jr. for his own political gain.
When Dr. King and Rustin planned a march outside of the DNC in Los Angeles, Powell went to King and warned him that he would go to the media if he didn't distance himself from Dr. King. He said that he would go to the press with the lie that Dr. King and Rustin were lovers.
This threat pushed Rustin from the movement he'd put his life and breath on the line for. With pressure from the movement, Rustin resigned from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization that he and King had helped founded.
For years, he stayed underneath the shadows, forced to hide for the first time in his life. The most brilliant, strategic mind of the entire civil rights movement, pushed out of the very movement that he helped to create.
He was a gay man, unapologetically, and he was shunned and silenced for his loving.
I met my brother the other day, and I gave him my right hand. As soon as ever my back was turned, he scandalized my name. You call that a brother? You call that a brother? You call that a brother? He scandalized my name. I met my sister the other day, and I gave her my right hand. Tell the story. As soon as ever my back was turned, she scandalized my name. What do you mean? You call that a sister? No. You call that a sister? No. You call that a sister? No. She scandalized my name. I met with Martin the other day, and I gave him my right hand. As soon as ever my back was turned, he scandalized. He took my work and shut me out. Do you call that a preacher? No. Do you call that a preacher? No. Do you call that a preacher? No. You scandalized my name. My name.
When they lied on him, he just dreamed harder. They had caught him in a loving, but they could not take his love.
Beautiful boy, sing your beautiful song. Nothing can hurt you if you live your truth, your song.
August 28th, 1963.
August 28th, 1963.
It was time.
Some would say
It was past time.
The 1963 March on Washington came with the momentum of black, brown, yellow, red, and white folks, both standing up and sitting down across the nation.
From the Montgomery bus boycotts to sit-ins,
Demonstrations at lunch counters, shopping centers, and on to the Freedom Rides.
the growing thunder of marginalized and oppressed citizens had come together at a mass demonstration in Washington, D.C., the seat of this nation's political power. And if change was gonna come,
people would have to come together as
one voice. But they needed an organizer.
An angelic troublemaker.
A visionary.
And
there was
no one else who could do what Bayard did. Leaders inside of the movement knew it, and eventually they agreed that Bayard Rustin should be brought back as lead organizer.
And organize he did in 8 weeks.
The busiest 8 weeks of Bayard Rustin's life.
It is estimated that 250,000 people showed up to the March on Washington, vastly exceeding expectations, extensively, dramatically, and most importantly, peacefully. How did he do that?
It was Bayard. It was Bayard's brilliant political and organizational strategy. It was Bayard's hyperactive, nonstop personality. It was Bayard.
With Julia's voice in his head and in his heart. In 8 weeks,
without cell phone and without email,
Bayard built an organization out of nothing. He built an alliance of leaders from
27 cities, 2,000 buses, 33
21 charter trains.
And 10 chartered airlines.
Uncounted cars.
One man roller skated 700 miles to get there.
And by 8 a.m. on the day of the march, police reported that over 100 buses per hour were streaming through the Baltimore tunnel.
And people were scared. They didn't know if they would be met with bomb threats or police beatings, but Bayard Rustin had the vision to organize 4,000 volunteer peace marshals from New York City, and everyone had a place to sleep, had food to eat, and had dignity.
Because Bayard organized more than 400 volunteer organizations to pack lunches for bus riders and travelers.
One New York church packed 80,000 cheese sandwiches to feed hungry marchers. Hand in hand, a 1 mile march,
250,000 Americans marching against the stifling oppression of Jim Crow, economic incarceration, and fear.
250,000 Americans marching, fighting, raising the flag to stand for an America that they believed could have the face of freedom that looked like each one of us.
They came because they wanted a new story. They had a dream, and it was time. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like the tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. So that black and white together. We shall not be moved. Black and white together. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. So that hand in hand we're singing. We shall not be moved. Hand in hand we're singing. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Fighting against injustice. We shall not be moved. Fighting against injustice. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. My soul be sleeping. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be
And Bayard marched, with his eyes taking in the entire Washington Mall. He could see the fruit of his hard work. Freedom harvest to all. They tried to stop him. They tried to push him back. But the power of love is its own righteous path.
The arc of the moral universe verse is so long. It takes the flight of angelic troublemakers to push it along.
When you face opposition, don't you bend, don't you kneel. Just seek out the place to be the stick in the wheel.
March on, step by step together. March on, advancing every day. It's a movement, not a moment. One human family. When black lives truly matter, we will all be free.
1 month after the March on Washington, 4 little girls were gathered in the basement of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. They were changing into their choir robe when 15 sticks of dynamite planted by the Ku Klux Klan exploded, ending their young lives.
Had they lived to hear it, on that day they would have heard a Sunday sermon entitled, A Love That Forgives.
To be afraid is to behave like the truth weren't true. Fighting unjust laws, bombs and hatred, the only weapon is you.
From Birmingham to Selma, some gave all and then gave more. What is your dream?
What do you stand for?
Bayard lived the truth that Black lives matter. Some people don't need to be told, others do.
In 2012, Black Lives Matter was created by 3 queer black women as a call to action for black people after George Zimmerman was acquitted for the murder of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin.
Black Lives Matter affirms the lives of black queer and trans folks, black disabled folks, black undocumented folks, black folks with records, all black women, and all black lives along the gender spectrum.
Boys die, nobody sings that song. Black boys die, and the world goes right along. Black girls disappear. They go missing every day. Black girls disappear. No one even says their name.
Bayard stood for justice throughout his life, expanding his focus to international causes, promoting free elections in Central America and Africa, supporting refugees, protesting for LGBT rights, and bringing the AIDS crisis to the attention of the NAACP.
Bayard was always exactly who he was.
Julia's grandson,
a proud descendant of enslaved people, and a loving gay child of God.
He lived this way, and he loved this way, and he moved the days this way.
In each one of his 75 years, he stood with the light of truth running a river through the house of his soul.
Bayard Rustin died in 1987, 2 months before the March on Washington for LGBTQ rights.
March on, advancing every day.
with the purpose, with the fire in our soul. Make a difference, hope and change be our goal. Love and peace and justice and truth. Marching with families, with our elders, with our youth. Building a beloved community of diversity and strength. There is power in our unity. Color, gender, ethnicity, we respect them all with sanity, a part of our humanity. It's sisterhood, brotherhood, personhood. Marching our feet up the street through the neighborhood. Moving steps, showing support for the common good. Come, feel our vitality. Come be a witness. Joining our universality, make a mission, the human condition. You see, when our people stand together, we will know equality. Peace!